What is going on, Diablo 2 fans? Dobrunsky here, and today I'm bringing you another Diablo 2 character breakdown. Today we're going to be focusing on what I think is the ultimate magic finding fire sorceress. Yeah, you heard me right, the fire sorceress. You're probably wondering, where can you even magic find with a character like that? And I will touch on a little bit of that in this video, but I also have a future video plan focusing solely on areas where you can magic find with fire damage oriented characters. But like all my Diablo 2 build guide videos, timestamps will be in the description below, so if you want to bounce back and forth between the attributes, skill tree distribution, or the gear or gameplay, they're there for you guys to use, so please take advantage of them. Other than that, guys, I really do hope you enjoy this video. Let's jump in. So there's three main points that I just want to briefly touch on before I actually break this character down piece by piece. And the first is that I do have a previously made video on my YouTube channel. It is a dedicated Pindle Running fire sorceress build. It's somewhat similar to the build that I will be discussing, except it does have some changes in terms of damage and the weapon on switch. So if you haven't seen that video, I do encourage you to check it out because it is like I said, a similar platform to this build that we'll be breaking down. The second point is that I will briefly touch on a little bit of different MF locations that you can use with the fire sorceress, because I know you guys are probably thinking, well, there's all kinds of fire immunes in Diablo 2. What's the point of a fire sorceress? But I do plan on making a future video where I go into greater detail about the different types of MF locations that are suited towards fire damage oriented characters. And the last thing that I want to touch on is that there is definitely different terms of gear variability that you can implement with this character build, and I will briefly discuss them. Kind of depends on if you want to go a little bit more towards boosting your magic find or more towards boosting your fire damage. Now I do think that this build is kind of centered down the middle and is a good balance of both, but again, I will try and touch on some different gear variations because I know different people like to build their character different, right? So I want to try and cover everything, all bases of the spectrum for different players. With that being said, let's dive into the attribute distribution of my fire source. The majority of my characters are max Vita, and this fire sorceress is no different, but what makes her very unique is that she is a 0 strength investment character, so I actually don't have to invest anything in strength to wear my gear, which kind of goes against the traditional trend of the majority of my builds will say, you know, enough strength to wear my gear, 156 strength points, that's enough to wear the monarch shield, to wear spirit, rest is in vitality. But this character doesn't have anything put into strength and everything is dumped in the vitality pool, which will make more sense when we break down the gear. But again, like nothing dexterity, nothing to energy, and I have 601 points in vitality, which is pretty crazy, and I have almost 1800 health before battle orders. Now this is a very high-end character, but I think a lot of people know that if you have sort of an average sorceress with a decent CTA, you might be looking at 1900 health with battle orders. This is almost 1800 without. Now it will make more sense when I break down the gear and you can see how I get so much health, but we'll dive into the character's skill tree now. So we'll kick things off by taking a look at the cold spell skill tree. Now I only have one hard point invested into frozen armor. Now personally myself, I just like to use frozen armor over the other two variations because shiver armor requires a point into ice bolt and a point into ice blast in order to unlock it, and again, that's more hard points that I can put towards the fire skill tree because this is a fire sorceress. So generally, even on my lightning sorceress, I always have a point into frozen armor. The only time I would suggest using shiver armor is if you're like a blizzard sorceress and you already have investments into glacial spike, frost nova, ice blast, and ice bolt, that kind of thing. You already have point investments into this part of the skill tree, so it's not too big a deal to put an extra point into shiver armor. Chilling armor I don't really ever use on any character, but very straightforward, one hard point into frozen armor. And then carrying on with the lightning skill tree, I have one hard point into static field, one hard point into telekinesis, and then one hard point into teleport. Now a quick note about teleport, I am using enigma on this sorceress, so it does save you one hard point, but I didn't feel like respecing for this build video, just to save that single digit hard point. At level 98, it doesn't make a difference. It's 1 extra point into frozen armor or 1 extra point into warmth, really. So if you really want to min and max your character, you can rely on a single point from Enigma to teleport around with, and you can get that extra little bit of mana recovery or extra little bit of defense. But again, I didn't bother doing it for this video, so this a quick point that I wanted to talk about teleport. So as you can imagine, since this is a magic finding fire sorceress build, the majority of our skill investment is in the fire tree. No brainer, right? But I should note that this is a max meteor and max fireball damage build. You can tailor it a little bit differently if you're just going to primarily focus on fireball, but kind of explain that now. So you're going to start off by maxing firebolt, fireball, meteor, and fire mastery. So fire mastery increases all fire damage across the skill tree, and then these 3 skills, firebolt, fireball, and meteor, they all synergize each other. So you want to max them all. Your primary attack is going to be coming from fireball. So with this character build, level 44, 18 to 19.3k fire damage, which is pretty impressive. I have 1 hard point into warmth. With all the plus skills and the inventory of fire skillers, you get a lot of mana recovery. It's almost like an insight without actually carrying one on your mercenaries, so it's pretty cool. You have at least, at bare minimum, 3 points into 1 into Inferno, 1 into Blaze, and 1 into Firewall, and that's just because they're to unlock Meteor. Now, this is where you can tailor your build depending on if you want to max your Meteor or you want to max like your mana recovery or something. So once you've maxed out these 4 skills, you can choose to put your remaining points into Inferno to boost the average fire damage per second on Meteor, which is what I did. It makes a difference of like 2 to 2,500 fire damage per second if you max Inferno or if you only have 1 hard point invested. So it's up to you. If you don't want to go that route, if you don't plan on using Meteor very often, then you can tuck your remaining points into Warmth for more mana recovery, or you could shove them into Frozen Armor if you want more defense. It's up to you depending on how you want to tailor them. Now, I have actually used both builds where I max Meteor like this current setup, or primarily using Fireball. I will say that the more you use Meteor, the better you get at actually aiming it and timing it. So I think that if you spend some time and getting really good at the aim, I think it's better to max the Meteor damage. But again, that's up to you. But that basically covers all 3 skill trees. So now we'll dive into the gear, which is pretty interesting. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this is a 0 strength investment character with very high-end gear. I kind of tailored it to be a good mix between MF and damage, but again, I will talk about some different alternative options. But starting off with the orb and the helmet, I have a fire faceted Oculus and a fire faceted Shaco. So this is a really good combination of magic find. The Oculus has resistances on it, mana after kill. Shaco has the DR, life and mana based on character level, and then I have 2 fire facets, which adds an additional -8 enemy fire resistance and +5 to damage, so it's a good balance. As far as different alternatives, you could use like a perfect Topaz or Isted Shaco, same with a Isted Oculus, or you could use something like Hodo if you don't like the random teleporting and you want more res than FCR. So those are some different alternative options. Now, an important point to note, the body armor is Enigma, so that's where I get the crazy amount of strength, so +73 strength, 2 skills, and making me get the run walk, everything that everybody knows Enigma has. But the important point to note about using this body armor is it's going to be difficult to cap your resistances, which will make more sense when we look at the inventory. But I just wanted to note that, if you use like Chains of Honor or Viper Magi, it's very easy to cap your res out, but there's no res on Enigma, so that is kind of a downside to this build. But honestly, I'm not really going to suggest different alternatives because it's the only way to get this 0 strength investment character. It's centered around this body armor, so we're sticking with Enigma. The amulet, I have a 25 res Maras. Again, the res is very important. The 2 skills, 5 attributes is nice as well. Now this is very important. I have Spirit and a Monarch Shield. Now the only way that I can hit 105 FCR without using FCR rings is having a 35 faster cast rate, spirit. This one is okay. I mean, 7 magic absorb. I rolled pretty good on the mana. 1 off of perfect for the mana and the 35 FCR. So again, it might be tough to get that monarch to roll 35, but it is essential for this build. Boots, I have 49% MF War Travelers. I've debated upping these to get a little bit more defense. A point to note about upping War Traveler boots is the strength requirement is higher than 156, but I have 161 without any investment into strength, so I think it's like 165 for upped War Travelers. I'm not sure. You can let me know in the comment section below, but I could put a few points into strength for that extra little bit of defense. Do I think it's worth it? I'm not sure. Now, it might be overkill, but the belt is Arachnid's Mesh. This is just for the $1 skills and the 20 faster cast rate. That helps me reach 105 FCR. And my gloves are Mage Fists, again 20 FCR for that 105 FCR breakpoint, mana recovery, and +1 to fire skills. Trangs is an alternative, sorry. I mean, Trangs has the FCR and cold res. These gloves were fire sorceress, +1 to fire skills, is more damage. That's why I went with Mage Fists. My rings I'm using, on this particular build, I have a Dwarf Star and a BK ring combo. The BK ring is because of the plus skills and life based on character level. Now the life is not boostable by battle orders, but again, it is more life going towards the total of reaching that nearly 3k health build, so that's why I went with the BK ring. Now the reason why I use Dwarf Star is because one of the areas that I like to magic find, like you saw in the intro, is the Durance of Hate level 3. Now there's all kinds of fire damage coming from the Ghoul Lords as well as the Council, so carrying a Dwarf Star ring is a really nice way to reduce that damage. It has the fire absorb, magic damage reduced, and also has 40 to life, which is actually boostable by battle orders, so that's why I'm using that Dwarf Star ring combo with BK. As far as different alternative options, you could run 2 BK rings, or you could actually run 2 SOJ rings. Now, a note about the SOJ rings, I don't think that you need the plus mana because of the insane mana recovery you get with this fire source build, so I would definitely recommend BK ring over SOJ. But again, that's just me, my personal preference. On Switch, the standard CTA and Spirit combo. This is a 5-6-4 CTA, so it's nearly perfect. That 6 to battle orders is what helps me get that insane 2.9k almost health on this Fire Sorceress build. The inventory on this character build is very expensive, and it's centered around boosting damage and capping the resistances. Because again, Enigma has that lack of res, which I've mentioned numerous times. So starting off with a Torch and Annie, I have an 1820 Source Torch and a 1820 Annie Charm. So again, they both have perfect 20 res. These are both very nice. That 40 res goes a long way to helping cap out the resistances on this character. And then all of my small charms are different assorted, 5 all-res charms or 5 all-res with mods. So this is a really nice one, 5 all-res, 6 MF. Plain 5 all-res, 1 is strength, 5 all-res. Another plain 5 res, plain 5 res. A 10% fire resistance, 5% MF small charm. Again, fire res is important because Spirit doesn't have any fire res. 2 to strength, 10 fire res, and then 20 to life, 11 fire res. That is a perfect small charm. I found that doing grinding all kinds of LK. It is a legit small charm. I have it footage captured and everything, but that is a perfect small charm. So this combination of small charms and really nice Torch and Annie helps me get my cold, lightning, and fire res my cold, lightning, and poison res capped out at 75, and then I am 4 short of capping out my fire res. Now the only way I can cap it is to sacrifice a Grand Charm Skiller for res, or getting a better Maras, because I only have 25 res. So if I had a 29 or 30 res Maras, I could cap out that fire res without having a resistance Grand Charm. But anyways, as far as the GCs go, I have a 40% Magic Find Geed's Grand Charm, Fire Skills 6 Strength, Fire Skills 40 to Life. I found this one off of Pindle, which is really nice. It's literally perfect. The only way you can get a better scaler is if you were to drop a 45 to lifer off of Diablo, Neelathak, or Bale. So that is a very godly Grand Charm, which for some reason I only get godly Grand Charms on Fire Sorceress, not on my Cold or Lightning, so I don't know what's RNG's problem. 1 to fire skill is 36 gold fine. Extra gold fine is okay. It's not as good as strength or like FHR or plus life, but it's another skiller with mods on it. Nether fire skill is 6 strength. Fire skill is 12 FHR. Now again, this is important. The 12 FHR on this skiller plus the 55 on spirit helps me get that 60 FHR easy. And then my final one is another fire skill, 6 strength. So again, you can see why with all the plus strength from Enigma, you know, a little bit on Shaco, the plus strength or plus attributes on Mara's, and the Torch and Annie, and then all the plus strength at all my GCs. You can see that I have zero, or you can see why I have literally 0 strength investment on this character build. But that wraps up the gear with some different alternative options. So now let's take a look at the Mercenaries gear. The Mercenary on this fire source is a Nightmare defensive merc. I chose this type of Mercenary because I really do like the Holy Freeze crowd control. Different alternative option, again, you can go with the offensive merc from Nightmare for the Might Aura to get more damage. Again, that's up to you, let you decide whether or not you want to do that. Infinity on a Mercenary is mandatory. Yeah, for breaking some fire immunities. It can't break as many as light, but it does also significantly increase your damage as well. So I have Infinity and an Ethereal Thresher. The armor is Fortitude, E-Bugged Belrog skin. As far as different alternative options, there's all kinds like Treachery, whatnot, but really high-end gear, so I'm using Fortitude. And then I'm going to show you my favorite piece of gear that I've ever found / made on my Pluggy account, and it is this 20 damage reduction Ethereal Chammed Vamp Gaze. So instead of using Endarials, using this Vamp Gaze, I get damage reduction. The Merc cannot be frozen. With his Holy Freeze Aura, he slows stuff down, and then he still has Life Leech, coupling that with really good damage from Fortitude, and then the Infinity to break the immunities, to break some fire immunities and increase the fire damage of my sorceress. But yeah, basically your standard kind of Fortitude Infinity setup, but I just used a different helmet. But that wraps up the Mercs gear. So now we'll go through one of the example areas that I like to farm, and I'll kind of explain why it is a good area to magic find, and we'll do it on Players 8 difficulty, and you'll get to kind of see this fire build, or this fire sorceress build in action. Okay, so I'm just going to set the Players difficulty to 8, and then I'm going to only magic find one particular area, and I'll kind of explain why. Again, like I said, I want to make a follow-up video going into greater detail about the different areas you can target and magic find as a fire sorceress. But this particular area is going to be the Mausoleum. Now, most people, I think, don't realize that it is a level 85 area, so any item in the game can drop, and there's next to no fire immunes. So generally, when I'm doing a Moz run, I will stop and I'll kill Blood Raven along the way. I don't really expect her to drop anything too crazy, but she's just there, right? So I might as well farm her. Now, okay, grab gloves. Now, we also have the Crypt. The Crypt is a level 84 area, so meaning a lot of items can still drop in the Crypt, but I generally, personally, just stick to the Mausoleum. So I'll stop in, we'll clear every monster just so you guys can see. This is Players 8 difficulty. There's a lot of poppables too. Monster density is kind of poor in this area. Generally, when I'm kind of going through, I'll just target champions and boss backs, but just for the sake of giving you a little bit more, you know, sight of the gameplay, I guess you'd say, I'll just clear everything. But you can see you're pretty much one-shotting everything. The odd fire enchanted monster, you'll have to use Meteor, or you can static, or wait for your Merc to take it down, but I'm out of identifies. And then there's a sparkly chest you can pop every run as well. Now, it's definitely not as good an area as, say, the ancient tunnels, but it is good for variety and absolutely a viable area to magic find with the fire sorceress. Double chest too. We can check that. 11 gold find. It's kind of useless. My standard typical run, it would be over already because I kind of just circulate and target the champion boss packs, but you can see this is like Player's 8 difficulty. One-shotting everything. Fire immunities. We'll go back and we'll check the Grand Charm after. Lots of weapon racks. Believe it or not, I have dropped a lot of really good things here, like Halibard's Rain, Jaw Runes, Bloodlord or Dark Force Spawn, lots of different things. Let me check the GC. I should have stocked up on. Ooh, look at that. We got the most useless skiller on a build guide video run. Okay, so chest. There you go. That wraps up a single run of this character. Well guys, there you have it. That is my ultimate magic finding fire sorceress build. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video and even consider farming with this character in the future. If you're bored stiff of the traditional blizzard or lightning sorceress, this fire build might be up your alley. And like I said at the start of the video, I will spend some time in a future video going over different areas that fire based characters excel at farming. Anyways guys, if you could throw a like on this video, share it. I need to consider subscribing if you're new to my Diablo 2 YouTube channel. Post new weekly content and stream every week, so there's always new stuff to look forward to on this channel. Anyways guys, thank you again so much for the support. It really does mean a lot, and I'll see you in my next video or stream. Have a good one.